today, and it's real my privilege to introduce the speaker, Mr. Prakash to this august audience. Mr. Prakash Seshadri, also known as Corporate Sage, brings with him leadership and business acumen of close to 4 decades, a celebrated management and holistic author, a strategic thinker, and a turnaround specialist. Mr. Prakash Seshadri is also the founder and CEO of India's leading consulting house, the Sea Change Consulting, and a heartfulness practitioner for close to 3 decades, continuing to serve millions across the globe in reaching their cherished goals. He is also a secretary to renowned Daji, the global guide and president of Heartfulness Foundation. Today's topic is growth in a 360-degree perspective, secrets to 10x business growth. Somebody was telling today even reaching 1x is so difficult in today's context. He's talking about 10x growth for the MSMEs. I think we are very keen to listen to his lecture today. Is a reflective of the current need to grow post-pandemic. The world has seen flat or trough-like growth curves, and this is a time to bounce back and get ready for a vertical launch. I think this is already obvious today. We are already bouncing back after the pandemic. In his talk, he'll share some compelling insights on the 3 topics: survive, stabilize, and surge ahead. He will share case studies and some compelling, ready-to-use insights for business leaders and entrepreneurs, which they can easily put to use in shaping and rewriting their corporate destinies. Over to Mr. Prakash Seshadri, please.
May I request people at the back?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If not you, who else? If not now, then when? This is the question with which I want to start the journey for the next about 50 minutes. I would like to start with a very short story. The story of a very old farmer and his son were living in a village. The father bought him and the son a donkey, and they were very proud of it and they wanted to display it to the entire village. So they took the donkey along and they were walking, and one consultant like me popped up and said, why are you not using the donkey? One of you should be actually sitting on it. Why else would he invest on it? So the father thinks a lot and then tells his son, better you sit on it. And then they start walking. Another expert comes along. He says, you must be mad. You are such an old man and you are making the young person to sit on the donkey. You must be actually sitting and your son should be walking with you. Okay, swap places. The old man sits on the donkey and walks, and the son is ambling along. And another expert comes along. He says, you have invested in a donkey which is capable of pulling as much as possible. Why one is walking on the road, both of you should be sitting. They take the advice and then both of them sit on the donkey and they go along. And another elderly advisor walks along and he says, I am from one of those animal protection organizations. I see that you are being very cruel to this animal. Instead, you actually should be carrying the donkey. Why are you actually both sitting on top? By this time they are near a bridge. They think, okay, it's better to take this advice because it could lead to consequences which are not good. And they actually take the donkey, and as they cross the bridge, the donkey falls off the bridge and they lose the only donkey they had. This has no relevance to the advice I'm going to give you for the next 45 minutes. It does happen that in this world, advisors fly 1,000 a minute. You search Google, you don't need to be here what I'm going to speak about. Everything that you want to know in this world, it's all available. Yet, it is the prudence with which you need to approach that alone can make a big difference. I have a fondness for the pharma industry because it's not a story that many know, including some industry friends here with whom I have done some work, Veeramani sir, Mr. Thiruvengadam, Mr. Sridharan, and a few more gentlemen who are here in this. When I was in my college, one of the dreams I had was to become an entrepreneur. And those days, one of my friends' elder brother used to be working in a pharma industry. He was in the accounts division of one of the Chennai-based pharma industries. And when we were just out of college, he put this thought into our head because we were all really burning with passion that we had to do something on our own. He said the easiest thing is to get into pharma distribution. One of my other friend from another stream was a person who had he was a BSc chemistry grad. So we all, four of us, begged, borrowed. I took about 2,000 rupees from my mother. And like that, each one brought some money. We had a seed capital of those days of about 10,000 rupees. About 6 months, all money lost. No physical spanking, but parents said, come on, this is not for you, get back to job. That's what I did. But that entrepreneurship journey did not die down. Somewhere in '92, I started off on my own and ran a few successful computer networking outfits, sold them off. And while I was in this line, I had picked up a lot of contacts with several industry leaders. You name anyone, both from the Pharma or another 44 verticals with whom we have worked in the last 20 odd years. All this gave me perspectives with which I continue to believe that we can make a big difference to people who are ready to listen, filter, go back and use. You must have heard the story of the ocean of milk parked being churned. At the end, you got the nectar of life. But for that to come, you had to go through a lot, including the poison which Lord Shiva had to swallow and save the world, as they say. The next 40-45 minutes, I don't want to put you through the churn of what the Devas and Asuras went through, but share 4 decades of what not just I have picked up, but what we have deployed in normal companies, in sick companies, and in companies which have looked for tremendous amount of growth. Which means that what you have is not raw material for you to go back and cook your food, but these are steps that you can go back and put to use right from today. Of course, it's going to be a wide menu card and not all need to be eaten or taken. You can make your choice. And for that to happen, there is one thing that the august audience has to be careful. Anything that we want to do to become successful, we need something called as skill sets. Without continuous improvement of skill sets, there is no way in which we can make ourselves and the companies that we work for or that we own, that we lead, become better. That brings us to the question then, what would you understand skill sets to be? Skill sets, in very simple parlance, can be put as knowledge put into action, aligned to a goal. Very simple statement, but very profound one. If in this room none of you knew swimming and I taught you swimming by sending you YouTube links and lessons for the next 30 days and put you at the end of a deep pool at the end of 30 days, I know for sure that you're not going to survive. You must have put this knowledge into practice and put it not just into practice but make it a habit and get it aligned to a goal. The topic that I have taken up after the feedbacks that I received from the organizers is 360-degree growth leading to a 10x growth. First of all, the audience here and the people who are going to watch it later maybe have to be careful or have to be very choosy about what their goals are. If your goal is not in alignment with some of the insights or inputs I am going to give, please don't put them into use. Which means you might want to rush to a pad and a pen to take some of the points that I'm going to share later, or if you have a mobile, maybe you can use your notepad in your mobile. I'm going to split the entire session into 3 buckets. This bucketing happened somewhere in April 2020. Life seemed to be normal till about end of February 2020. We were working on a very big project in Bangalore. We had reached there, and after 2 days, we were told that there is a virus which is spreading along, and we were told to mask even in the train. When we came back, within a few days, the first Janata lockdown happened. And what followed is something all of us know. That made the world into today what is famously called as pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. I'm still not sure if post-pandemic is here still officially. We still seem to be going through a during pandemic phase. 4th, 5th, 6th wave, we don't know. In that 1.5 months, literally I was stuck inside home, except being in touch with clients. Many of them were sinking. Many of them had closed shops. Many of them didn't know what to do. Those who had deep pockets were selling off assets to pay off their current liabilities, salaries, meeting their expenses and things like that. That 1.5 months gave birth to 2 things. And that's how I met Mr. Sridharan, who's here on stage with me. It made me write my 11th book called The Spiritual CEO, which was acquired by Amazon and published worldwide last year. It took me about 40 days from cover to cover to write it down, and then the editing process went on. The second thing which happened, which is likely to come out as a book in the next 1 year, which I am still giving shape. So what you're going to hear is like a sneak preview of some of the contents of the book. This book, or the concept that I coined and developed to help clients go through the phase that they were going through because of the pandemic. I coined that concept, which today is becoming relevant and being used by many industries pan-Asia, is called the SSS bucket, or the Survive, Stabilise and Surge Ahead. I have been told that today's topic is predominantly focused on MSMEs of the pharma industry, which means typically you are in the bucket of maybe between 5-10 crores to about 250 crores per annum turnover. However, the inputs and insights that are going to be shared are applicable to much bigger and wider audience as well. When we look at the bucket of survival is all about ensuring that your neck is above the water and you're able to breathe, you're able to go through. I'm very sure that some of the industry colleagues of yours might have most probably closed shop, not just in India but pan-global. Several of the clients we had dealt with pre-pandemic have either stopped their activities in full, or they have found some way to survive and then now are hoping to stabilize and surge ahead. For this to happen, even to survive, I would like to share a base model on which I even recently released a YouTube video 2 weeks ago. Many of my models are based on the concept of equilateral triangle. An equilateral triangle is when all sides are equal, all angles are the same. And if one side or one angle is different, the shape loses its quality of being equilateral. Which means that there are 3 points which have to be the same and which have to grow in the same speed at which the other 2 points are growing. If one grows faster or one is lagging behind, it might become what you call as an obtuse. triangle. So what do we do if you are able to balance three of the insights? When I'm speaking about the survival bucket, I'll give you three things that you need to balance. When I speak about the stabilizing bucket, I'll talk about three things that you need to balance, and likewise for the surge ahead. Some of you might have already crossed the level of survival. You may be doing well. You must have got back your moorings and you are back into the normal space of 10, 20, 30% annual growth. When I speak about 10x growth, it's not 10, 20, 30% growth, but I am speaking about 1000% growth is what I am talking about. Irrespective of whether you are in the survive, stabilize or surge ahead bucket, there is a equilateral triangle every entrepreneur, every leader in every organization will have to balance. I call it as the PPF model. The PPF model stands as an acronym for past, present and future. We have worked with more than 1,500 organizations in the last 20 years in helping them turn around, manage their issues, capitalize on opportunities and bring substantial changes and in the process growth that they have been aiming for. But one thing I found common, even in some of the best well-led industries or verticals, not just pharma. There are about 45 business verticals with which normally we work. It covers end-to-end any industry that I speak about, right from education, take anything, aerospace. They all work in the present. They all work on quarter-to-quarter results. They all work on clearing off inventory. They all work on ensuring that the outstandings are recovered in time. They are all working on the current challenges of high level of attrition. They are all working on the current challenges of poor market capitalization of whatever they are doing. Inability to penetrate the market, which means the skew is continuously for the next 30 to 90 days. But the key of PPF is about balancing the past, present and future. When Mr. Mehul was speaking prior to me, the journey that he has traversed and reached where he is today is because of what he did in the past or what he did not do in the past. The mistakes that might have happened, leadership level, organization level, the wrong decisions that they might have taken, the wrong investments that the company might have made, the wrong products and services that you chose to offer to the marketplace. All this is cumulatively responsible for bringing us to where we are today. If you are familiar with the concept of Indian karmic theory, which I have covered in my book, The Spiritual CEO, what we are today is a summum bonum of what we have done in the past, plus and minus. But unfortunately, many of the leaders who are in charge of running the organizations don't seem to have the time to revisit the past and either learn from the successes that they have had in the past and ensure that those successes are documented and scaled up, or the mistakes that they have done, which they need to undo so that it does not hurt the future at least. Many of the mistakes organizations make normally are human related. Because products and services, there is a base from which we all start. We innovate or we create, and then products and services have a tendency to behave in a predictable way. People don't. Some of the biggest leadership mistakes that we have made in the last 3, 5, 10, 20 years, there is not even a documentation of where we went wrong in terms of how we handle people. And what we do in the present, by ensuring we work on the mistakes and the pluses that we have garnered from the past, is what is going to create the future. When I look at the time that the top level leadership invest on the day-to-day affairs, we just do very simple conversations, find out how the time is going. Almost 85 to 90% of the time is invested in handling the current situations. At max, it's one financial year window. If I am working max, I work on a 22-23 financial year. That's it. My conversations with my team, the conversations with my production, marketing, everything is about how we are going to achieve the top line, the bottom line, the EBITDA, the PAT. To the extent that we don't have time to build the future. So one balance that I would want you to bring, if it doesn't already exist, is please look at how at the level of a CEO or the top level management of your organization, how is your time invested on a daily basis? Let me give you a very simple bucketing concept, how it can be used, and you can do a comparison. See whether it makes sense for you to use. In some advanced organizations where we have implemented this, we even have 3 separate teams. One team working on the past, one team working on the present, and one team working on the future. Maybe surprising for many. When you are looking at the time that you spend or invest in a day, assuming that you invest about 8 to 10 hours a day, assuming, could be plus or minus, I would advocate, request, suggest as an advice, put in about 20% of your time, whether it's 10 hours, 8 hours, in a structured way on working on the past of what your organization and what your people have been and which has brought you today to where you are. We can easily do it by a simple, there are several tools available on Android and iOS platforms, simple time trackers. When I'm speaking about the past, it could be about opportunities missed. It could be about the problems that you have faced in the past. It could be about root cause analysis that you have to do. It could be undoing the poor strategies that you have built in the past. It could be the wrong execution that you chose to do in the past. It could be the poor leadership skills of the key team members of your team. If you invest 20% of your time, you can have additional members helping you to dive deeper into this, but at least at the top level, you put in about 20% of your time into working on the past. There are areas you have to undo and there are certain areas you have to adapt and gallop further. There might have been many good things you did in the past as well. Invest about 40% of your time in working on the present, which means your focus is on your financials, your bank statements, your marketing projections, your production targets, your QCs, whatnot. 40% of your daily time, if you're able to invest in the present, which is going to give your next 9 to 12 month of results. And if you're seriously looking at a 10x growth, see if you can invest about the rest of your 40% time in building the future of your organization. Future always looks to be in the distant time arena, but it's built brick by brick in the present. If I don't invest time today, the future is never going to arrive. It's always going to be a wishful future which seems to exist in my dreams but not in reality. So with that PPF model, let me also look at what 10x actually means. To do a 10x growth, you need to have a 360-degree awareness at the top level of 15 key functions in your present bucket. Let me read out those 15 buckets on which we would want the top level leadership or CEOs to focus. This is not necessarily in any specific order, but I am just giving you the 15 buckets that you need to work and focus on. Production, R&D, purchasing, sales and marketing, human resources, accounting and finance, channel management and distribution, vendor management or supply chain management as you would like to call, IT, information technology, not necessarily income tax, digital. Today it seems to be sort of a still poorly understood word or poorly used word. The previous speaker spoke about IIoT. Already some of the advanced countries have the vision of going where by 2030, except a few verticals, all verticals would work on a pay-per-use basis, which means people will not pay for ownership anymore. This is a standard at least some of the European and American companies have already decided to move on. By 2030, they will offer services which are purely on a pay-per-use basis, which means nobody will pay you to buy your car. I use it for 5 hours, I'll pay for 5 hours. Things like that. At least 70 to 80% of many of the goods would come under this bracket. And IIoT is the standard that is being driven by some of the big firms, even in India today, where the organizations are getting into what is known as Business 3.0. Something worth investing a time on, because the past is catching up very fast and it's only a question of a few years before we get swept off. L&D. This is one area where learning and development is one area where many organizations don't seem to have time to focus. All that undoing of the past and creation of the future happens from minds which are fresh, minds which are innovative, minds which can churn ideas and get them executed. And for that, you need to have not just cutting edge technology, but you need to have cutting edge thinking and execution skills. Leadership, finally, ladies and gentlemen, is all about just two words: ability to think and ability to flawlessly execute. Under thinking and execution, there are multiple buckets, but there are only two buckets. If you look at Mahabharata, Lord Krishna thought and the Pandavas executed, and victory was theirs. They could be strategically divided as well. One person can think, somebody else can execute. It can also happen simultaneously. Depends upon what your core competencies are. Another area which we work on at least is one thing that through data we have understood is 85% of the companies in India are owned by families, small, big, medium. Very surprising data. And the biggest challenge, many of the organizations, even if you look at the Tatas or the Birlas or the Ambanis, it's still at the back end it's held by a family. The biggest challenge that's going to be there for you to reach a 10x growth is your ability to plan and execute succession planning. Not just succession planning in terms of ownership alone, but succession planning at each of the level. In very simple terms, we always call it the first step in succession planning. What we call as FPR and SPR. FPR standing for first person responsible. SPR stands for second person responsible. Some of the key functions of your organization, if it should not come to a standstill because one person is refusing to cooperate, or he is not living up to the expectation, or he is unwell, or he quits his job, or he demands a better pay and you don't want to give, you need to have backup. And SPR, or a second person responsible, is at least if you go back today and identify 5, 10, 15 key people pan your organization who today are literally untouchable in one way, in the sense without them the organization won't run. They are indispensable. These are the people for whom you need to create succession planning. Who is going to be the backup in case these people, for whatever reason, are not going to be with me in the next 3 months, 6 months or 1 year. So succession planning is an area. It is just not about P&L and top line and bottom line anymore. Those days are gone long ago. I'll cover that in the next point that I'm going to touch about. Then we have creativity and innovation. There are many organizations today, they have chief creativity officers, CCOs. CXO portfolios expanding now at a very rapid pace everywhere. The future is built in the present with the new ideas, and of course pharma companies, I don't need to take coal to Newcastle. You all are masters at churning out new products and innovations. But it cannot be just products and innovations, it also has to be how you deal with the market, how you deal with your people, everything. Then we have the processes which are essential for a robust growth which will lead to 10x. Hence the 360-degree view of these 15. There are two more which I want to share: strategic thinking, and last but not the least, the 15th bucket is what I call as the service bucket. If your service is not of exceptional value, people are not going to come to you. Today, thanks to the fast availability of technology and the speedy duplication of any concept, product or service, the differentiator between two organizations has almost become wafer thin. The only differentiator is the service that you bring to the table. The service need not be only in the delivery of the product, it could be in anything, but you need to find that 1 degree differentiator between what you are and what the competition is. 1 degree does make a big difference. At 211 degrees Fahrenheit, water is still hot water. At 212 degrees Fahrenheit, it becomes steam and it can run a completely different industry based on steam. In high sea, if it is a 1% degree shift in high ocean, you may land up in a new continent altogether. Ask Vasco da Gama or Columbus, they will tell you. When they left Europe, they had different destinations in mind, but because of whatever 1 degree shift that they had, they discovered maybe the Americas, and one landed up in the coast of Kerala, the Portuguese. If you are able to balance the PPF, if you are able to balance the 360 degree view of these 15 buckets, 10x growth then sort of becomes a possibility. Let me now move on to the survival bucket. I want to give 3 quick ideas. All these ideas in the survival bucket at least are to be used in the next 3 to 6 months, kind of a window, timing wise. There's something that would be already known to you but may not be practiced. Let me give the 3 ideas when it comes to the survival bucket, which I would want every organization to focus to ensure that your neck is above the water level and that you don't drown. Like DRS in cricket, there is always a second chance even for organizations. Sinking is not necessarily an option that we have to exercise. Why am I saying it? Because several organizations that I have known today don't exist. Pandemic has had a huge impact in sweeping out people who are not ready, who are not prepared. Hence, these 3 ideas become of vital importance. What are these? One of the oldest known concept in any industry, cash is king. But the idea one is not just about keeping cash, it's about knowing how to manage 2 important aspects of your business which leads to better cash, not just in your P&L but actually in your hand. Many of the companies I have known have their P&L very, very strongly built. But when I dig deeper into them, I find that the entire money is stuck in inventory and outstandings. Thanks to the speed at which organizations have started working today, I'm very sure that manufacturing companies would be familiar with the term STR or stock turnaround ratio. For a good manufacturing organization to make decent margins when the margins on your products are not as what they used to be. In 83, when I graduated out of college, when I took up distributorship, without any questions, the company with which we, the 4 of our friends, signed up, straight away gave a 50% commission on their products. I don't think that's possible today. Which means the only way in which you can make more money is by turning around your stocks. Which means STR assumes significance. For manufacturing organizations, specifically MSMEs and Pharmas, with whatever data I have, it's shocking and surprising that their STR is between 1.25 to 1.5. I'm talking about per annum. When you're talking about 1.25 to 1.5, if they have an inventory of 1 crore on hand, the turnover is 1.25 or 1.5 crores. Who is making the money here? The bankers, the people maybe who have lent you money, and maybe the market who is buying from you products because you are forced to sell at discounts because you don't know what to do. The ideal, at least live alone ideal, something to start with for MSMEs to consider, Pharma MSMEs, in the range of 5 to 250 crores per annum, even the bigger ones. look at least 4 per annum. Ideal is much higher. 4 per annum also means that you are turning around the stock that you are manufacturing 4 times a year, which means a little bit margin instead of 1.25, it gives you now 4x the margins. This also means you will have to do better the way in which you are manufacturing. Lean and mean manufacturing methods, Six Sigma, whatever you want to adopt. To make 10x growth, both in top line and bottom line, it's already in you. It's a question of a person who has a beautiful photograph in home of his father, great grandfather, but it's completely hidden in dustbin. He doesn't even see. All it needs is for him to wipe the dust and the photograph shines in all its glory. Likewise, whatever you want to do better, it's already available inside your organization. JIT is too ideal for you to move on. May not be possible in pharma industry, but there are industries who are much bigger than you who have adopted JIT or just in time. For example, take automobiles, take computer manufacturing companies. Let me give you 2 examples. Dell, which popularized JIT about 25 years ago in the world, they are not the only ones, but they really popularized. In the peak of their sales prowess, which maybe they were the first to adopt to web-based sales, they were selling between 60 to 70,000 units per day from their 4 factories globally. They were getting shipped with a 3-day arrival at the destination. After that, it's left to the customs. For the 60 to 70,000, and each of these units had about 100 to 120 different unique parts inside the computer, whether it be the monitor, the keyboard, the motherboard, the chips, the RAM, the hard disk, whatever it may be. Imagine the complexity of managing this. And these 150 components came from more than 300 to 400 manufacturers. And they were not necessarily co-located in the same place where Dell had their factories. They pushed and pushed and pushed. After about 4 years of working, they were able to implement what today everyone aspires to implement in their factories. Beginning of the day, their opening inventory was 0. End of the day, after the 60 or 70,000 units were dispatched, the closing inventory was 0. Another company which is doing, with whom we do a lot of work, is Hyundai, which is just in the outskirts of Chennai. They have beautifully integrated and implemented a 4-layer support system, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and then the miscellaneous suppliers. All these people have been groomed over a period of time to ensure that Hyundai, which apparently ships between 5,000 to 6,000 cars a day from the Chennai factory, both to India and globally, they don't hold any inventory in the beginning of the day or end of the day. But it took them about 4 to 5 years of preparing Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 suppliers and the feed mechanism which feeds these suppliers in turn. It's not that the Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 were making losses and Hyundai was making money. They ensured that a total integration happened and these people were making it too. Is it a pipe dream that is not possible? I don't think so. Normally in behavioral science, we always say that what is possible for one human being or what is possible in one industry normally is possible for any other human being or any other industry. We just have to find a better way of doing than what we are currently doing. If we take inventory out of it, we were recently working with a very big retail chain in Chennai. They are doing about 30 crores of turnover with a book profit of about 2.8 crores or so, PAT. And when we dug in and found out, it was a shock both to the business owners as well as to us. They had 14 crores in stock and about 3 crores in outstanding, which meant almost 60% of the turnover that they did was in stocks and was in outstandings. On paper, and they were paying tax to the government because on paper they're showing so much of profits. It took about 2 months to even make them understand, and today they are moving towards They, after a lot of deliberations and looking at their inventory, the way in which they work, we had set them a target of in 3 years an STR of 7, which means with the same stocks that they are currently doing, they will be able to do 10x turnover in about 3 years' time. When I say 10x growth, it's not necessarily growth in 1 year's time. You can set your time. It can be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever works for you. The second is the outstandings. Many of us, for sales and marketing, this is both the boon and the bane. I come from a sales background, so I understand what it is to make sales. But many times we get into deals which are not credit-worthy. Not our fault, but the pressures are such, and the market being what it is, we are forced to sometimes take orders from government, from OEs, from large distribution channels, exports. Like our earlier gentleman said, a Japanese company went defunct, we don't know. If you are able to manage, which is the idea number 1, in your present bucket, if MSMEs do not want to work on past and future for the next 9 months, I would still accept it as a viable proposition. Next 1 year, 9 months at least, in your present bucket, work on finding out what is the impact of inventory. Since I am speaking to a manufacturing vertical here, I am not moving to how to handle the concept of inventory for service-oriented organizations. There is inventory for service-oriented organization also. I come from a service-oriented organization. For us, the biggest inventory is the knowledge that we have gained and the number of services that we have actually made. If you take Microsoft, is it a knowledge industry or is it a product industry? They are termed as a product industry because what you get comes in a pen drive or a DVD, but actually they are a knowledge industry. What they sell you is the knowledge in terms of licenses. That's all. That's what we do also. So if you are a manufacturing industry, go back and pay attention immediately to find what is your current STR and how do I make it 2 times, whatever it is currently, how do I make it 2 times in the next 1 year? It's possible. You'll find sufficient strength and knowledge inside your organization where this is something doable. And look at your receivables. Your accounts receivables or bills receivable, as we call, is what determines actually what you need to get into. And this determines the idea number 2. Save time and money for networking. If you look at Mahabharata, the biggest strength of Pandavas was, even during that Agyadvasa time, they were networking with people who later became their allies. This is the time when your chips are down, is when you network. Even this is a great forum for you to network. It might lead to collaboration between people who are here, which might help you to tap into industries that you have never tapped into. We don't know. Networking, not just for the sake of networking, but networking for the sake of mutual win-win as well. Idea number 3. Finally, it all boils down to customers, right? Come what may, ensure that your existing customers don't leave you. Recently, one research I was going through, one Gartner study, it was mentioning that almost 75% of the top companies in the world have less than 20% retention rate of their existing customers, which means 80% of the new orders are coming from customers they are spending to acquire, whereas they already have customers on hand whom they can service well and ensure that they don't need to worry. But we are always looking at the eternal next customer who's going to give us the big deal, forgetting that the existing customers are the ones who are going to really give us the bread, butter, honey, jam, whatever you want to call. So the 3 points for the survival bucket, many of these needs a lot of deeper deliberation. Maybe when the book comes out, you will have an idea what they are, or we can take it offline and talk. Idea one is to ensure that your inventory and receivables, you work towards a healthy mix. Idea number 2 is to save your time and money and do networking. Idea number 3 in the survival bucket is to ensure that at any cost you don't leave your existing customers, whatever the size may be. Let me move on to the stabilizing bucket. If you're already very comfortable, I have my market share, I'm back now, things are fine, the pandemic is now behind my back, and I want to know how to stabilize. My boat has been rocked for quite some time now, I want to move into stable water. I am still not ready to push and take my boat faster. At least I want to be in not choppy waters anymore. Stabilizing, let me give you again 3 ideas. Each of the ideas, as I mentioned before, please bear in mind the principle of equilateral triangle. Don't work just one of them, work on all the 3. The stabilizing bucket, the first idea I want to speak about is what I call as the balance of QQP. The QQP balance is all about quality, quantity and pricing. If you really push one side out, if you spend too much time in making a products of high quality, what is likely to happen in all probability that you may not be able to give a competitive price. And you may not be able to hit high quantities as well. This needs a lot of study and revamping of your current ways in which you are approaching your production or your marketing or your pricing. But keep the QQP balance in your head. Managing quality, managing the quantity and managing the price. Equilateral triangle is the first idea that I wanted to propose for people who want to stabilize. I'm out of the choppy waters, I want to stabilize my business. The second one, now you have the time to breathe. Please re-evaluate your products and services. Irrespective of the 45 verticals we have worked, one thing that we have seen always, surprisingly with all the companies, with almost unmissing regularity, is the Pareto principle. 80% of the revenue seems to come from 20% of the products or services. And it was a case study we did for a pharma distribution company down south about 7-8 years back. We found out that they were doing good, but they had scope for doing better. And they had inventories. They were not directly into medicines, but they were in a different layer, working with surgical materials and stuff like that. They had 80% of products listed in their catalog which had literally no takers. They had about 1,500 products. It took us about 3 months to shape it up and let the owner go off almost 80% of the product that they are currently doing. It involved some hard bargain with their existing suppliers, because some suppliers were being hurt in the process, because all along they could just come, dump, raise a bill, and after some time they got their money. And that money was going out of this person's profit and it was sitting as dead stock in their inventory. After about 3 months, whatever we cleared, we put it on sale and they realized some quick money. And since then, they have thinned their portfolio based on a very simple 80-20 principle of focusing on 20% that gets the 80% of your margin. If you haven't already done, ladies and gentlemen, today what I want you to do is go back and look at what is your 80-20 mix. Re-evaluate your products and services. If you are carrying dead stocks which market is not accepting, if you are carrying dead inventory which the market is not taking, if you are carrying services nobody wants, be the first to cut the umbilical cord and dump those products and services. Use that time that you're investing in maintaining those products and services to develop something new. You have the time, you have the bandwidth, now you can develop a set of new products and services. Idea number 3 in the stabilizing bucket. Today the biggest success for all companies, in my view, irrespective of what you sell, at the core of what you are still a marketing company. If you are not, nobody is going to embrace what you sell. some of the biggest products in the world, best, not well-known products, far better than products like Microsoft or Apple, have met a silent death for a simple reason: they didn't know how to build their brand and marketing. This is one area many MSMEs or even mid-cap companies falter at least a bit. And if you really look at how the markets have shifted today, it's no more just about the big bang advertising. If you really have studied digital concepts well, the money today has to be put, as they say, where the mouth is. And where it is today, if you can make a guess, it is in building communities. It is the communities who become your silent micro and macro influencers. Do you have communities to support out there who will talk about you? The community could be press. The community could be some forums. The community could be some distribution channels. Do you have communities to support you, speak about you? It is like the fan club. When Talaivar movie comes out, I am the first one to go and put the flag or whatever and watch it. He doesn't pay me anything, but still I do because I have some kind of a fan following. Your product, here of course you can create a community fan following by reinvesting the money that you currently put in traditional marketing choices. If you're not already doing, allocate about 20 to 25% of your marketing budget for the next 1 year on community-based digital marketing and see the results that it can bring to you. Many small companies, mid companies, we have done in the last 2 to 3 years, specifically in pandemic, we have helped them shift to the digital world. They are seeing growth which is unimaginable, which they haven't seen in the last 10 years of existence pre-pandemic. So, to summarize the 3 ideas for the stabilizing bucket: stabilize a QQP, which is quality, quantity and price. Re-evaluate your products and services on the Pareto principle. And go digital and build communities which will let you survive, stabilize and surge ahead for the next 2 to 3 decades. This is where the future is going. Today people are not watching you only in press and media. They're watching you in mobile phone, they're watching in Insta, they're looking at you in Snapchat, they're looking at you on platforms which you don't even know that exist. You have to adapt to that. Let me move to the last bucket which I want to share, which is the surging ahead bucket. I am doing good. I am already 250 crore plus. I want to really grow big time. Please give me 3 cutting edge ideas that you want to help me with. If that is a call, these are 3 inputs I would like to give. It's not that the earlier 3 plus 3, 6 inputs are not applicable to you. Some of them can be used. These 3 inputs are: the first one, innovate not your products and services. Innovate and rethink your strategies. Fortunately or unfortunately, strategy is one of the most often wrongly used word in this world. Everyone speaks about it, rarely anyone understands. 2 people sit and talk, it's automatically understood they are strategizing. No offense meant, but unfortunately, there are many management quacks who say this is what a strategy is, and people follow you, they don't know. The land of the blind, one-eyed man is the king. Since nobody knows, we all think that what we are currently doing is right. If you had to look at what we call as a zero-based budgeting, if I had to give up whatever I am currently doing, completely redo and rethink, what would my strategy be? It's a huge topic. Many books are written. Every year there are 3-4 Harvard research done on what a strategy is, what to do. Strategy to sell is different from an execution strategy to the whole stuff. It's a huge ocean out there. But if you are serious about going big time, innovate and rethink your current strategies. If possible, start from a clean slate. Idea number 2. This is the time for big data. It is said that every person in this world generates 1.7 megabyte of data every minute. Your employee sitting inside your office, you through your mobile phone, Everybody connected to you is generating 1.7 megabytes of data per minute. Imagine the kind of data that's floating about you. These are about the conversation that's happening about you, your organization. People chatting, they're sending WhatsApp, they're sending email, they're making calls. Even a call is part of the big data. Do you today have a mechanism of embracing big data and moving into business and data analytics? Sitting in just a 6x6 cubicle, you can work wonders that you cannot do by traveling to the end of the world. By just adapting this one single piece of input, which is the idea number 2, which is all about embracing big data and data analytics. Point number 3. As Mr. Mehul mentioned before, this is something which is also my pet subject. I can theorize, I can ideate, I can strategize, I can build castles in the air, but nothing will fructify and bring results unless I have flawless execution. Do you even have an execution strategy? Execution is not same as execution strategy. Do we have an execution strategy? How do I ensure that the strategy and the plans that I make for the goals that I want to achieve can be achieved, executed flawlessly? How do I make my team do it? This is one of the biggest challenges every corporate organization, irrespective of the size that they are in, are facing today. The idea is great. We want to make the best product, we made it, but we don't know how to sell. We don't know how to execute. Please relook how you are currently executing. I have absolutely huge respect for all the big companies of the world who have made it big, but they can make it bigger if they can only relook at what they are currently executing. Just to sum it up, there are 3 buckets that I covered. The survival bucket, the stabilizing bucket, and the surging ahead bucket. The surviving bucket was about 3 ideas that I gave, which revolved around your finances and inventory, which revolved around your ability to network even in tough times, and it revolved around the concept of retaining every one of your current customer. Not just holding on to them, but ensuring they give you repeat business and better business. The second bucket of stabilizing bucket had 3 points, which companies which have crossed over and the boats are not rocking anymore, they are fine. I had shared about the QQP, the quality, quantity, price metrics to balance it out. Re-evaluating your products based on the 80-20 or the Pareto principle, and going digital and investing about 25% of your current marketing budget in building communities around what you offer. The last bucket was on surging ahead bucket. This was about innovation, not innovating products and services that we already saw earlier. It's innovating your current strategy. Idea number 2 in the surging ahead bucket was focusing on the big data or the data analytics. Idea number 3 was on flawless execution. Before I close off, to work on the present bucket, which I started with, I would like to give 10 inputs which would work for even a newly joined corporate executive to CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. What are these? I am not speaking from the podium just because I have the right to, but these are things which I practice in my life day to day. People who know me well know me that I do all this, and hence I believe that I would be on a better position to share these as insights that you can practice. Point number 1, walking the talk. Talk what you mean. People do not do as you say, people do as you do. Just because I hold the authority as the CEO or the vice president or a managing director of a company, people will not do what I tell them to do. People will do as I do. Point number 1, walk the talk. Your inside and outside has to match. If you have to start practicing truth and scale down, it's okay, but if you have something else outside, it's a question of time before people are extremely smart these days. They just smell you miles away. And they just nod your head because you're paying the salaries, and they may not follow what you tell them to. Point number 2, this is one of my favorite principles both for personal, professional, and even business life, what I call the UCOD principle, UCOD. UCOD stands for undercommit, over-deliver, every time, all the time. Never commit too much. Whatever you commit, do better than what you commit. Undercommit if possible, over-deliver. This, in the long run, leads to what I call as customer ecstasy. People will run after you because they know that you know what you're going to commit, you will surely do. So point number 2 was UCOD. Point number 3, specifically for even family, build a happy workplace. Very difficult. Very, very, very difficult. But I like the example Mr. Mehul gave of building pressure. What happens? The moment it's out of the pressure, the ball loses the water around it, right? That's what he shared. But if it is a happy workplace, one recent data that I picked up day before yesterday says that they have found it that a happy workplace improves productivity by 30%. The great places to work, India has now started with at least 500 companies. You will find it on the web. All of them have, are you happy working in this place, as one of the prime parameters. People, specifically the millennials and the Gen Z, I work with many of them as part of my consulting assignments. They care literally a hoot about who you are. If they're not happy, I want my space, standard word. I want my space to think, I want my space to do what I want. If that is not given, they are not happy, they feel constrained, they leave. Point number 3 is building a happy working place. Point number 4 is your ability to be accountable for what you talk about. Accountability is all about taking ownership for outputs. If you want a sales team to do some numbers, you should be able to actually tell them how to do it, not just inspire them or give them a lecture from the podium. If you are in production or QC, that's why it needs a person who's a general, who's also a specialist in all the areas of armed forces. They are the ones who can actually get into the cockpit, like what Ratan Tata once did. He got into the cockpit and showed how to fly a fighter plane. That makes a lot of doing. Point number 5, whatever you do it well, do it right the first time. Doing the second, third, fourth time is very, very, very expensive. This is one of the execution principles. Of course, we'll learn about it maybe later in future. Point number 6, build trust in workplace. A trust in workplace means people know their value, not just verbally but practically. And my interest is taken care by people irrespective of whether they speak to me or not. For example, if my boss is taking a decision, I have complete trust that whatever is deciding will take care of my interest too, explicitly, implicitly. That takes, even if you make a beginning today, between 3 to 5 years to build such an organization where trust exists. It is lack of trust which makes people to quit. Point number 7, as they say, children cry for it, elders die for it. Power of appreciation. Easily given, very, very easy to accept, rarely given. One survey said that corporate executives get appreciated in the workplace max once a year. That's all. Whereas the craving is at least twice a day. Imagine the gap. They want to be appreciated twice a day at least because they believe they do 2 things good at least per day, which amounts to about 600 times a year, whereas they get appreciated just once a year. Even that is a formality. Annual award and claps, and that's it. It's over. Point number 8, the standard rule that I follow myself and request all to follow is the 1-minute rule when it comes to either appreciation, reprimand or feedback. Whether you want to appreciate someone, you want to reprimand someone, or want to give a feedback, keep it in 1 minute. Beyond that, it's all a waste of time. They know what you want to say. If possible, just send a WhatsApp and just say, this is what I want you to do. And as a bonus, if you want me to tell, when you give give feedback about the action, not about the person. Invariably, we get confused. We give feedback about the person, leave the action out. Point number 9, what I want to say, learn positive rephrasing. Instead of saying you are useless, which is very easy to say, you can say, would you mind considering doing it this way? You always keep coming late. Would you mind finding ways in which you can come by 9 o'clock tomorrow? Positive rephrasing right from childbirth seems to have such an impact in shaping your attitude, even in workplace. When managers and leaders rephrase positively, it apparently increases productivity by 25% is what one study says. And finally, those who are all born are finally going to hit the grave. Anybody here who is 5,000 years old, 2,000 years old? I'm sure no. Which means that another 20, 30, 40 years we are going to hit the flat portion of the world. Why stress so much? Have a happy work-life balance, whatever it is. If it is just 1 hour that you have time to spend with your family, make that 1 hour like 24 hours. It's not all will always get 6 hours to spend with family. It's about infusing life into that time that you get either with yourself or with your family. These are the 10 insights that I wanted to share as a bonus, along with the other insights that I shared in terms of how to survive, stabilize, and surge ahead. Let me go back to the opening statement I made before I close off. If not you, who else? If not now, then when? Thank you.
Yep, love that. So, over to Sridhar, a lot of insights today after your talk. And you started off with 3 buckets like survival, stabilization, and surge ahead. Because each person, each company should understand, where he stands today, and then based on that, he can always strategize. So, first is survival. People who are in the survival mode, you are giving a lot of ideas, and especially keeping the inventory intact. Inventory management is very crucial, and then receivables you have to take a lot of care, and retention of customers is very important. So these 3 are very good points we have learned, apart from other things like succession planning and creativity officers and all that stuff. Then coming to stabilization of the company, you have given us 3 ideas. One is the quality, quantity, pricing, match. Number 2 is re-evaluate your products and services and strategies. And then you are advocating digital marketing. It's very, very important. You do a lot of investments, at least 25% investments in digital marketing, which is very important to stabilize your organization. The third one is surge ahead, which is a faster growth trajectory, where you try to innovate